to record this.
Yeah.
So just keep your screens off, like always. And then you guys will be able to view this again later. All right, so let's see, the point of intersection, if any of these are what? So the point of intersection, you know that this is a line, right? This is a line and this is a parabola, but this is a sideways parabola. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can just plug in the values here real quick in your head. If this doesn't work for here, then it's definitely not one of the points.
Yeah.
Right? Each of these have to work for each of the equations. So to be honest with you, that'd be the quicker way to do it, is just to plug. So plug in 1, -1. Well, that's not going to work, right?
So it wouldn't be A or C then.
And for this one, if you plug in -4 for X, yeah, that wouldn't work. This wouldn't work. So it only can be D, if any, or they do not intersect. And I think D works, because if you plug in 4, if you plug in +4 and -2, those work. That works. And it works for this as well, 4 - 2. So that was the answer for it. Okay. So there's an algebraic way of doing it, but when they give you multiple choice, you don't have to do it algebraically. You can just plug in chug.
Okay.
So if those are your equations, then this is what. All right. So for this one, you probably do want to go ahead and plug this in. So G of X is going to go into F of X. So this is going in anywhere you see X.
Okay.
So I'm going to start writing my F of X out. So F of G of X equals, every time I see an X, I'm going to put a big old parentheses.
Okay.
And now I'm literally just plugging G of X in for that. So it's 2 times the square root of X plus 1.
Okay.
Right? So, and how do I square this? Do you remember?
Don't the square roots cancel out?
Well, I also have to put the square in here though first, right? So it's 2 squared times the square root of X plus 1 squared. Got it?
Yeah.
Minus 1. So it equals 4 times X plus 1 minus 1. But now I distribute the 4 in, right?
Yeah.
4x plus 4, 1. So 4x plus 3. And there's your. Okay.
Okay.
Now, another way you could have done that, if you wanted to do like the cheater way of doing it, which again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with doing. It's not cheating because it's multiple choice, but you could have just plugged in values. Like you could plug in 0 into G of X first, and then plug it into F of X. See what I'm saying? So if I plugged in 0 here, I'm going to get square root of 1, which is 1. So this is just going to be 2. And then F of 2, 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. So that would be 3. And now plug 0 into here and see what you get. You get 3.
3. Oh, okay.
Whereas if you plugged 0 into here, would you get 3 if you plug 0 into here?
You get 1.
You wouldn't get 3. Would you get 0 if you plug, or 3?
But wouldn't you get 3 if you did it for D as well?
So right, and so for D, no, you wouldn't get. Oh, for D you'd get 6, or no, for D you'd get 9.
3.
I'm sorry. What am I plugging in? 0. Yeah. No, you're right. So I'm sorry. Maybe I was doing that wrong. If I plugged in 0 for here, it wouldn't work. For here, it wouldn't work, and for here, but it would work for this. So then now you've put another number in. So now try G of 3. Why did I pick 3? Because what's 3 plus 1?
4.
It's 4, and what's the square root of 4?
2.
You see how I picked that? I didn't just pick any old number because I don't want to have to deal with the square root anywhere.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
And you'll see when you do that, you'll see that one wouldn't work.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not that, it's that. But again, that probably wouldn't have been a faster way of doing it, but that is something you could have done. Okay. The
Okay.
domain of that function, the way you find the domain of a square root function is you take the inside and you say, what has to be true about 6 minus 3x? If you're taking the square root of it in the real number, what has to be true about
Be
it?
a positive number.
Yeah, so it has to be greater than or equal to what?
0.
0.
Oh.
And now solve that equation.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So
But
X
that's not
equals-
easy. That's not easy necessarily. Because what happens when I subtract 6? Do I flip the sign when I subtracted 6?
Yeah. I mean, you just flip the sign and you divide by -3.
That's right. Now I'm going to divide by -3, and now the sign has to flip. And there's your answer.
Okay.
Now, you could have right away, hopefully, eliminated these ones because you know it can be equal to 0 as well.
Yeah.
Right. And then you could have just plugged in numbers and you've been like, oh, yeah, 2. Well, can it be bigger than 2 or less than 2? Well, if this was bigger than 2, if it was 3, what's 3 times 3?
9.
9, and 6 minus 9 is a negative number. So you know that wouldn't be the right answer.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
Sebastian, you see how I did that?
Yeah.
All right. The quadratic equation for solutions
Wait, on
is
that last one, how
Yeah.
did you get rid of the square root?
I didn't get rid of it. I just know that in order to find the domain of a square root, this has to be a positive number or a non-negative number. So I took the inside of it and I said that has to be greater than or equal to 0.
Okay.
Because you can't take the square root of a negative number is not a real number.
Yeah.
So that's the definition of the domain of a square root function.
Okay.
All right, for 31, I'm going to show you a little trick. So here's the trick. They don't teach you this in class a lot of times, but if you have 2 zeros, if you want to find out what the quadratic or what the equation was, so if you're given zeros and you want to find the equation,
Yeah.
if you're given 2 zeros and you want to find the equation, here's how you do it. It's going to be x squared plus, let's see, minus, I'm trying to think of what it is now. Give me a second. It's x squared minus the sum plus the product. That's what it is. It's x squared minus the sum of the zeros plus the product of the zeros. I'll prove it to you real quick. What's x plus 2 and x minus 3? What does that turn into? X squared minus x minus 6,
Yeah.
right? What are the zeros? -2 and +3, right?
Yeah.
What's the product of these?
1.
What's the product? What's -2 times 3?
Oh. -6.
It's -6. And what's the sum of these?
1.
-1. Sorry. Yeah, it's +1. Oh, yeah. So sorry, the sum is, yeah, right. The sum is +1, but you take the negative of the sum, the opposite of the sum, and you put it there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So why would I teach you that? Well, because when you have something like this, it's very easy to find the quadratic equation because what's the sum?
Is it 4 plus or minus root 10?
It's just 4. No, the sum is just 4. And what's the product? Now that's a little bit harder, but it's not terribly hard. It's the square root of 2 plus the square root of 10, 2 minus the square root of 10. Right? What's the product of those zeros? It's going to be 4 minus 10. which is -6. So what's the equation going to be? Look at your formula over here.
X squared
Oops, sorry.
minus
Hold on.
4x
I lost me.
Oh.
Yeah, you got it.
X
got it.
squared minus 4x plus -6.
-6. Yep, that's it.
Oh my, yes.
Abby, you see how I did that?
Yeah.
Now maybe your teachers do teach you that, but I don't remember.
They
Usually when I have kids, so the other way to do this is to literally expand it out like this. X minus 2 plus root 10 times X plus 2 minus root 10. Sorry, I did that wrong. 2 minus root 10, like that. And then you have to not just FOIL that out. You got to distribute the negatives. You got to multiply it all out. It's a big mess.
So is the sum always the first number?
The sum, no, just add them together. What do these two add together to? What happens to the positive root 10 and the negative root 10?
Oh, they cancel out.
They cancel, and the 2 plus the 2 add up. That's why this is such a good little cheat formula to know.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay. And then this next one says the equation x minus 1 equals root x plus 5 has exactly well, there's a couple ways you can do this one. You can graph this. This is y1 and this is y2. That's what I would do. And the graphs look like this. What's x minus 1 look like?
Straight, wouldn't it, if you said it equal to 0, wouldn't it be a straight line through 1?
Through -1. This, right, the y-intercept is -1. So that's that. And what's the square root of plus 5? What's the square root of x plus 5? This shifts it where? The square root of x looks like this normally, right? It's like a half parabola, like there.
Mm-hmm.
And what does -5 do to it? You remember what that does to the graph?
Does it move it left 5?
Yeah, it shifts it left 5. So your graph's going to be over here at -5, and it's going to go like this. So tell me, how many solutions does this have?
1.
And is it a positive or a negative solution? What's the x value going to be? Is it going to be a positive number or a negative number?
Negative.
Yeah. Can you see that, Abby?
Wait, how did you graph the second equation? How did you get rid of the square root for that?
The square root of x looks like this. That's just the basic graph of the square root of x. So when you have a +5 on the inside, it means it shifts 5 to the left.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just going to be like that. So you know they're going to intersect right here, which is what? What solution is that going to give you? That's a negative number, right? It's a negative. Yeah. So you don't have to actually solve the equation. You can solve the equation, but you could just graph it real quick. See how quick and easy that was for me to graph it? And then you can see exactly how many solutions it has. It's just going to have that one solution. That's going to be a negative. They didn't want to know what the solution was. They just wanted to know how many solutions. Okay. You good?
Yep.
Which other one do you want from here? 37?
Yeah, 37.
Given that exactly one of the following numbers is not in the domain. It is, well, not in the domain. The ones that are not in the domain are when you can't divide by 0. So set this denominator equal to 0, and that'll be your answer. 2x equals 1, x equals 1/2. 1/2 is not in the domain. Because if you plugged it in, you would get something over 0, and you can't do that. That's not a real number. Okay.
Can you go over that one more time?
Sure. Whenever you have, there's 2 no-nos in real numbers. You can't take the square. Whoops, man, I keep doing that. I'm so sorry, guys. There's 2 no-nos in real numbers. The two no-nos are you can't take the square root or an even root of a negative number. You can't do that. So that would be not in the domain, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is you can't divide by 0. You can't do it. So I say to myself, what's the only thing that would cause a problem for this equation right here? What's the only thing that would cause a problem? Do I have a square root in it anywhere?
No.
No, so that's not something I have to worry about. What's the other no-no? I can't divide by
0.
0. So what value of x would make this denominator 0? I just write my equation. 2x minus 1.
Oh, okay.
Right? Actually, what I should write is 2x minus 1 cannot equal 0. That's really how I should write it. Okay? Got it, Avi?
Yeah.
All right. Last one, we're plugging Duggan. So I'm going to plug this. See how that's inside x? So I'm plugging that in to x. So this would be, didn't we just do this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So squared minus 1. So that's going to be 4 times plus 1.
I would like follow through when you did it the first time, so you can just go to 40.
Yeah, 4x plus 4 minus 1. So it's this one. Given that x equals 1 is a solution of the equation, the other solutions are, so what we're going to do is synthetic division. So if 1 is a solution, you take the coordinates of this equation and you put them in here. Do you remember synthetic division?
Kind of.
Okay, you drop this down, you multiply, and you put it here. You add straight down, you multiply, and you put it here. You add straight down, you multiply, and you put it here. And that 0 means that this was a 0 or a solution or a root, right? A root and a 0 and a solution, those all mean the same thing. So now this is the other factor. So we're going to write 1x squared minus 1x plus 2. That's the other factor of this. If you multiply that by x minus 1, guess what you'd get if you multiply these together? You get that. So they want us to find the other roots. Well, now I'm going to just factor this. How does this factor? How does x squared minus x plus 2 factor? Does it factor? Minus 2 and plus 1?
I don't think so.
I think it does. No, it doesn't. Minus 2 and no, it doesn't. So since it doesn't factor, we're going to have to use the what?
Quadratic formula.
Yeah, the quadratic formula. So it's negative b, which is positive 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 1, positive 1, minus 4ac all over 2a. So that equals 1. Oh, there's an I in here because this is a negative number. Do you see how that's a negative? Let's see, negative. Let's see, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. Yeah, that's going to be an imaginary solution. So it's either b or e. It's going to be imaginary. So it's plus or minus the square root of, this is negative 8, so this is negative 7 all over 2. So it's 1/2. I'm distributing this 2 into both of these. 1/2 plus or minus the square root of 7/2 times I. That's how you pull that out. So it's b. So welcome to day 1 of math tutoring. you guys will be able to watch. I'll put that video on. I'll post that on here later, and you can watch that again later. But do me a favor and invite your friends